So good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Planning and Highways Committee on the 4th of April 2023. This meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. So I think it will get fewer views than another event that's taking place at the same time in New York. So really trumped that one. Thank you. So moving on to the agenda item 1, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received, excuse me, from councillors Mark Lillycrop and David Lister.
Thank you. So we're a bit short staffed this evening, but we are quorate, so we can make decisions. Thank you. Is that somebody?
The press.
All right. Declaration. Okay, so just for your information, the person who's watching remotely is the reporter for Neighbourhood Weekly News. So declarations of interest.
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Oh, sorry, I have say the two things. The item 7, the Frothy Frog. I'm a trustee for Thatcham Memorial Hall. I think I declared this interest last time, simply a personal one and not a prejudicial. And item 8, 23 Goose Green Way is in Thatcham Central. I'm standing as a prospective member for Thatcham Central, so I don't know what to declare that.
I think so.
But I don't see it as a.
I don't think if you're standing as a candidate for a quarter of the town, I don't think that's a declarable interest, is it, Madam Clerk? If you wish to, but in which case, I was going to say I ought to declare an interest in agenda item 6 as a resident that's just about close enough, but I should make it clear I have no other interest in that agenda item other than personal through doing the work.
But Madam Clerk, what's there's election coming up, candidates is it right? We don't have to declare it, or it should?
It's entirely at councillor's discretion. So if you wish to, absolutely, I'll record that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's just the first thing.
So moving on, the minutes of the last meeting.
Proposed minutes, Mr. Chairman. Happy to second.
Those in favour? Thank you. Well, it's two-thirds of the meeting are proposed consecutive. I think that's taken as well. Okay, matters arising from the previous meeting.
Nothing from me, Chairman.
I'm just going to have a quick look. Are we still dealing with the Lawrence's Lane? Just to say that is ongoing. That's Lawrence's Lane, Gypsy and Trafford site. There are two other things going on there. There is still correspondence going on between the parties concerning the details of the Section 106 agreement. But so,
can you clarify Section 106 is like still payment, isn't it?
No, so Section 106 is it's basically unilateral undertakings. We normally think of them as financial because that's what we generally hear about. But this is an undertaking that the residents would give if a permission was granted to do with the way that the works would be carried out. I can't remember the details, but it's basically.
How's the case now concluded as with the inspector?
No, well, it's with the inspector, but he's still waiting for the Section 106 as part of his evidence.
Is there anything more for you to do, or for this council to do?
No.
Do you have a time frame?
No. No. The inspector. All those appeals take as long as they take. The only information I have is that informally the conversation with the inspector suggested that he might be have reason to conclude his work quickly, but I don't know how much else, how many further stages it needs to go through. Councillor Woodhams.
Chairman, in respect of the consultation on the West Berkshire Local Plan Review, I don't know whether you saw an email recently, but it read that a planning officer at West Berkshire Council is to assist the planning inspector in respect of the local plan. If this is true, will this action create a conflict of interest when a planning inspector's role is thought to be impartial?
No, because I think if you read it in detail, the person who is assisting the inspector is an independent consultant, not an employee of West Berkshire Council. So I think he's just doing the administrative work on behalf of the planning inspectorate to speed things up. But it's not as, I don't know the financial arrangements, but it's not in any, it is somebody who is acting independently for the inspector in terms of his role.
But the amount of work he's got to look at, I'm not surprised.
He's not reading the material, he's just looking after the process as I understand it in the email.
Assisting,
Yeah, and the inspector will have to read a lot of that,
So
so.
we have no, even a prospective date as to when the result will be delivered.
So which one?
The appeal, the Lawrence's Lane appeal.
No.
Haven't been heard.
No.
Thank you for the clarification.
So we got, so there were two things that overlap there. Two things with the inspectorate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anyway. Nothing else from you?
No, thank you.
So we'll move on. Can I suggest that we reorder the agenda to take agenda item 10 next on the agenda? I'm going to propose that. Seconder, thank you. Those in favour. So that's agenda item 10, which is traffic management and highway matters. So formally speaking, can I go to 10A? Do we have anything on that? That is the,
yes, that's the monitoring, isn't it?
that is the table.
This paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything changed on that?
Not that I'm aware of, Chairman, no.
Okay, so it might change after the next agenda item, 10B,
Chairman, are we referring to the
the table, yes.
thing I was with? Chairman, I drove into Thatcham Town Centre this evening just to see if the look left, look right, white paint had been installed, and it has not. I have to say that I'm absolutely disgusted at the length of time it's taken. This was first raised at a surgery, the one before I attended, which was in August last year. And here we have it's been on here on this chart for some time, awaiting quotations. Now, since last August when it was raised, certainly with me, how on earth can it take that long for a quotation? It's ridiculous. I'm very pleased to see there are certain areas of Thatcham that have some new white lining, but this was particularly urgent on the basis that it was reported to me that 2 people in their mobility scooters were knocked out onto the road. And this should be an absolute priority, a great urgency. We have an increasing number of people using mobility scooters from in this area, especially in the town centre. And I think, as you quite rightly pointed out, West Berkshire Council are responsible, so we can't get a bucket of paint and do it. It's got to go through a particular process of this highways process. I think you highlighted in a chart somewhere that before the white lining fades, that it's replaced or at least enhanced before it fades out and becomes redundant. I don't think this is good enough. I don't think we're getting value for money. The taxpayers of Thatcham particularly don't think that they're getting value for money for the council tax. It's an absolute disgrace, and I like to register that point very, very strongly. This is a matter of road safety and with pedestrians also. And I of all the 40 years I've served on this council, I've never known anything like it. Complete and utter disgrace. Thank you.
But in fact, as I went into the town centre this evening before coming here, and you certainly couldn't read the white line because there was a kebab van parked right across the crossing.
The warning sign.
And when I suggested that he shouldn't, he said, "Well, you can walk around it." Couldn't do with a mobility scooter.
Did you buy that?
No.
Right,
No.
down here. Support.
Chairman, but I also.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councillor Crumley's next, and then you'll come to you.
Well, as me that suggested we buy a bucket of paint and do it ourselves, just to shame the district council, and the learning friend also doesn't seem to think that's a good idea. Perhaps one day, if it's still not done, there will come a time when he and I can collaborate together and to do it. It wouldn't be a rare collaboration, I admit, but it might be something to shame the council into doing something they should. I think it's the district council. Councillor is the two is it for Thatcham Central, they must be aware of the problem, aren't they? Be encouraged to bring pressure to bear.
Well, we'll wait and see. I think if we come back to this item after the 4th of May, because the amount of pressure that individual councillors might be able to exert might have changed by then. Well, I'm talking about district councillors, but the thing is that don't take any action. Certainly don't go out buy any paint until after the 4th of May. Okay.
Can I just also highlight a similar situation with the trip hazard in the high street? I think you visited Whitelands as well. This has been going on for some considerable time. It's where a lady tripped over, broke her arm. It's where at a surgery, an elderly gentleman said he could no longer push his wife in a wheelchair across that area because the drop curves have a lip on them, as we all know, so you can't get up again. Cambers are there, drains are there, uneven road surface. That's not being done either. It's appalling. It's very, very poor indeed. As I say, residents of Thatcham pay their council tax. They expect a service. This is so bad, and so the chart goes on. It's urgent items required to be done, and here we are talking about buying a polythene ourselves. It's just ridiculous. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just come back on the wide round report? I mean, I know this has been running on for a while. As I understand it, the district council officers have visited and said, in their view, there wasn't a problem break as is indicated by
my understanding of the position was that it was agreed that it would be done as part of the work on the Crown Mead. It's at the extreme end of that work, and of course that hasn't happened. So I can't recall if that happened if we asked that at the last meeting, but if not, Madam Clerk, could you
consider the programme?
Yeah, could we write to the council inquiring about what's happened about the Crown Mead development changes and include Wybrow Court as part of that? Thank you.
Can I just sorry?
I've got another idea about the crossing and the fact we can't buy white. We should put a temporary notice board up, a little sandwich board, to say that you can look left or right as the case may be. So we're not actually painting it ourselves, we're just producing a temporary notice of the warning until the proper paint note is done by the local authority.
Can we come back to that one, because you have another issue if you start putting up signs that don't comply with the traffic signs manual, and then there's an accident, then you might be liable, or we might be liable as a council. I think I say that what I suggest is we come back to this in 2 meetings' time. Perhaps we have a more thorough review of this after May the 4th, and Councillor Woodham's again.
I agree with you, Chairman, and I think what we need to do is send this chart to the relevant highways officer and invite him to come here. Well, it's going to be a future meeting now, and give us answers. We need a highways officer to come and attend this meeting, perhaps even a full council meeting. And just give a response to all these outstanding issues. Be going on for well, it'll probably be about a year by the time anything gets done, if not more. Not acceptable, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I say we'll put this off for two meetings so that we come back after May the 4th, when we have a new committee and a new set of councillors.
I wish you success.
Thank you. And members of the public.
Mr.
Woodham would be welcome. Okay, so moving on to the agenda item 10B. Madam Clerk, do you have any other items brought forward since the
just the
agenda?
one, Chairman, that has come through just this evening, and bear with me.
The emergency closure of Burybank Road yet again, hasn't it?
Yes, Burybank Road will be closed from the 11th and 12th of April between 9:30 AM and 3:30 PM from 1,530 metres east of the control tower roundabout to 610 metres west of the control tower roundabout. The closure is to enable Volker Highways to carry out carriageway retexturing work on behalf of West Berkshire Council. There'll be a full road closure with no through traffic.
You just run through that again from me, so if I'm going over the railway line at Thatcham, then I turn right into Bank Road, is that where the it stops?
Well, it's somewhere along, but if you're going,
You can't get through the.
can't get through, no.
So how long was that for?
11th and 12th of
So
April.
just say 48 hours.
Presumably cows are still permitted to go on the carriageway. Okay, so with that, there's a member of the public wishes to raise an item. So can I propose that we invite the member of the public to speak?
Seconded, Chair.
Those in favour, thank you. So would you like to
Thank you, yes. I live in the bottom end of Malham Road, RG 193XB. And for the last 2.5 years, we've seen the problem with car parking down one side of that road, predominantly by a local taxi company, that park in that general public, none of which live in Malham Road. When they're parked down there, nose to tail, I can't exit and my driveway with my car. One day last year, we had a family trip planned to go out, and we simply couldn't get the car out to go out for the day. I've rang the taxi company concerned, because that's the worst culprit. And I can't repeat the message that I got down the phone. I've also spoken to the relevant driver. And that conversation didn't go very well either. We've only got one driver for this taxi company that I know of that lives in Great Barn Court, not Malham Road. And we've had, on one occasion last year, we had 5 taxis parked down there. Last week we had one parked for 6 days, didn't move. The week before that, we had one parked there for 16 days, didn't move. We've even had taxis being repaired on the side of the road. So they are the worst culprit. But having said that, I say there are normal cars come and park down there, but they're not resident of our street. And once they're down there and it's just one long line opposite my drive, I can't get in a rest. And I just feel as a ratepayer and a resident, I should at least have that access.
Okay, thank you. So as you've probably gathered already, Thatcham Town Council isn't responsible for highways,
Yes.
but we can advise and request. So from what I understand, there is a need for residents to park there to
Yes,
some
because the
extent.
2 houses at the bottom have got, they've both got 2 cars. But they've only got one bay at the front of their property, so they need to actually put their second car on the road at the bottom, which causes no problem to anybody.
Yeah.
So what I would like to see is residents only parking.
Okay.
That would just solve the problem.
Right,
So that it was just there for us residents to use.
okay. So Councillor Cromley.
If I may pose a question, you were talking about having difficulty getting your car out. Obviously, it's quite unacceptable if somebody's parked across your driveway. Obviously, if they're parked opposite your driveway,
Yes.
that would be almost as bad.
That's
Has
right.
anybody parked across your driveway? So
No,
Cause an
I've got
obstruction.
photographs with me that
Yeah.
if anybody.
it's really parking opposite.
They're parking opposite, so I simply cannot. If I just.
Definitely getting out. I've got the same in my
So-
street as well. Have you thought about getting a couple of red cones and putting them where you don't want
Well-
to park to see people off?
Trying to get,
So
come on.
I think from the cones, it's again a question of cones, is that they have no standing if you don't.
Yeah, but it's enough, I'm sure,
Well-
to, he's off,
Okay,
scare off,
So-
most would be, parking passes, I know. but,
So,
Of me.
Chairman, can I just clarify?
yeah.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you saying that part of the problem is that the vehicle parks across your?
No, directly opposite.
Opposite, so
Yeah.
you can't turn out.
I can't, it's not enough room to get my car out.
Got it.
My daughter has got a little Vauxhall Corsa.
Yes,
To get that car out, she has to shunt backwards and forwards 3 times.
understood. Thank
I've
you.
got an Audi that simply, we
No.
can't get out.
Got it.
So what I'd suggest then is that we're already writing a letter this week to highways, West Berkshire Council highways on the Crown Mead. So can we add this point and inquire about the their view on a residence parking scheme? And this might possibly be a different letter. Could I suggest that we ask the licensing department about if there are any licensing conditions about leaving vehicles on the highway?
Is that taxis?
Taxi licensing, yes. Because obviously that won't affect, won't have all vehicles, but that's a separate question. If it sounds like that's a particularly long-term problem. If we ask the council what if there's a licensing condition as part of the taxi licensing, which might be easier to invoke than traffic offences.
I raise the issue of the yellow lines.
Well, I think
Well, so we spoke about
Yeah.
yellow line because the residents at the bottom have to put their cars on the road at the bottom because they've only got parking for one.
So
I
you
suggest maybe yellow line, but
yeah.
Could we not just have residents parking?
So there's a couple of alternatives. So if you have a single yellow line, there are some around the district, particularly adjacent to schools, where there's a restriction for just an hour during the day.
Right.
And that effectively means that you can't park there permanently, but it enables people. So there are a number of different options there. But if we ask about residents parking or other measures to prevent long-term parking, and then we'll raise that with you. And if you could, do we have contact? Have you left a contact?
No.
Okay, if you could, well, I guess you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if not, if you could leave a contact information privately so that we can get back to you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and you're happy with those actions? Do we need to vote on that, or is that okay? Fine. Okay. So if you're content with that way forward, we'll see what we can do, and we'll let you know if we hear back, and with that, because that will be then reported back to another meeting, but we can let you know individually before that.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
To reinstate, do we?
Sorry? No.
To reinstate.
No.
Right.
Unless you want to stop people talking, but I think we'll come back to the other people wishing to address the meeting later on.
Right.
So if that brings us to the end of agenda item 10, so we then move on to agenda item 5, I think.
Do we want to go to 6, Chairman?
We can do
The residents
Okay.
here, item 6.
item 6. Should we move the agenda again? I think you're happy with that. This will be moving on to agenda item 6 and then coming to
I'm going to
agenda
go back to
item 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Lead of the whole.
Thank you. I'll propose that, seconded, and you're going to agree to that. It doesn't make any difference, but thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the appeal on land to the rear of 123 to 125 Bath Road. And as the clerk is not the regular clerk to this meeting, if I give a brief history. We've seen 2 applications for this, basically for the same concept of development. The first one, the Thatcham Town Council made no objection, and that application was refused by West Berkshire Council. The second one, we made no objection and made a positive comment that we thought it was a good development, but it was still rejected. And so I was very surprised about this because I think when we discussed it last time, obviously we discussed it at more length the second time than the first. It seemed to be the sort of development that if Thatcham Town Council wishes to have new housing in the town, and I think we do, but that's the decision that we made for the local plan, that we do need some extra housing, and this is the sort of, if there has to be infill, and that's, we've basically got 3 choices: brownfield, infill, or greenfield. And I think that is the priority, and there's very limited brownfield in Thatcham, so we need to have some infill. So if you have infill, then this is the sort of my personal feeling was that this is a sort of development which we would welcome, particularly in the context of 2 doors down with Francis Close, which is rather higher density, to say the least. So because I felt quite strongly about that, I've written a proposed I should say that after that was second application was refused by West Berkshire Council, the applicant has not put in an appeal, and I therefore felt that I wish to support that appeal in the spirit of the decision that we made before. So I have written that, which I think looked good.
Yeah, no, six,
Yeah, anyway.
Very good.
And that's 6-1. So you have 4 documents. Oh yeah, 6-2, 6-3. Okay, so you have 4 documents before you for this agenda item. The first one is the letter that we received in relation to the appeal. The second one is the refusal notice, which gives the grounds why West Berkshire Council refused. The third one.
6-2 is Clapham Town Council representative.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll come to that. They're slightly out of order. So the second one that you in the order that we need to think about them. The second one is the refusal letter. The third one, which is quite important, is a document I hadn't previously come across called the Quality Design Statement, Area Design Focus for Bath Road, Thatcham, dated 2006, which describes the character of Bath Road in 2006, and which was relied on quite heavily in the refusal. So, if I go briefly through I basically went through and commented on those things that I felt were not quite right. So firstly, section 1 says that we support the appeal and gives some history and our normal practice, which is we don't normally say we support an application unless it has a public benefit. So we would say no comment, sorry, no objection and add a comment, which we did in this case. So the section 2 gives a description of the setting and scale of the development, which, if you recall correctly, is 3 bungalows to the rear of 2 houses. They are to the north of Bath Road, which means that the bungalows are adjacent to Barfield Road, and I would describe the bungalows as broadly similar to, apart from Barfield Road and semis, but broadly similar in scale and density to what is immediately to the north. One of the reasons that was given for refusal was it will lose the long gardens of the houses, which I'm not quite sure why that is a critical planning matter, but many other houses along there have lost their long gardens, and in fact, what is now Francis Close has lost the houses as well. So, and then that goes into some more detail there about the setting, and referencing to the policies. They seem to have found lots of policies that they believe it's non-compliant with. I have to say that reading their reasons for refusal, I think almost any development anywhere in the district, they could use the same argument to refuse, and therefore they cease to be an objective criteria and therefore are subjective according to the views of the planning officer.
Are you suggesting to be cut and paste?
Don't know, but so then that goes through in a lot more detail, looking at the design focus statement, which, as I say, was 2006, which predates all of the developments along the north side of Thatcham, and in particular, I think most significant in terms of the character of the road is the Francis Close development for 40 odd flats. Or there's only one property between the 2 that we're talking about and Francis Close.
Do we have a map?
So yeah, just going into the introduction. So, Mark, do you have any information on? Have you?
I haven't, but I can.
Yeah. So
Next to heading.
yeah. It's 1, 2, 3, not 3 Bath Road.
This way.
Yeah. So you will see there, the driveway that you see there, if you can scroll a bit to the right, the driveway that you can see there is the driveway between the two houses. That will become the access way to the 3 bungalows that you would just about be able to see at the end of the.
Where's this Francis Close?
Francis Close, if you scroll left, so you see there's one house to the left, and then Francis Close is immediately beyond that new development on the corner of Hennick Lane.
Right, okay.
And if you look at the scale of that and compare that with 3 bungalows, which you can just see, just about see through the gap, that's 127 is what you can see there.
So this is typical back garden development, which once upon a time was frowned upon and is now treated more sympathetic.
Well, it's back garden development is actually relatively low density. One of the comments that I made in the my suggested response is that the West Berkshire Council said that it was overdevelopment, but in fact it is below the minimum density for this area in the relevant policy. So I didn't quite understand that. So my suggestion is, given that we need some development, 3 bungalows between those 2 houses with the access. That is slightly modified since then, by the way, the hedge to the right is being removed to widen the access, but that's
I'll be able to have a this photograph is tremendous, but we
do you have the plan?
a plan looking down.
Did you save a plan for that?
Chairman, can I also ask, have there been any comments from the surrounding?
No, of course, this is an appeal. This is slightly unusual. So there were 3 objections and 24 representations of support. Now, if there was the opposite way round, that there were the council was minded to approve and there were 24 objections, then it would automatically get called into the planning committee. But due to a quirk of the West Berkshire Council constitution, the opposite doesn't happen. So I have read the 3 representations of objection. 2 of them explicitly state that they are residents of Barfield Road, and the 3rd one implicitly is from what they describe, but they don't say that. And they're all concerned about the overlooking and the impact on privacy. So one of the points I make,
Overlooking 500.
I was going to say that one of the points I'm making is not only is it a bungalow, but the pitch of the roof is quite shallow. There's not enough height to put a dormer window, to put a room in the roof. So not only is the initial design not overlooking, and but also it's not possible to modify. Well, it'd be a major planning. You can do anything nowadays, but it would be a major planning application to make that extension, which would then raise the whole issue of privacy once again. So I looked at those, and my feeling, and I say this in this, is that we do take considerable. What was the wording I used? We give substantial weight to any representations of objection by local residents, but having looked at this, we feel that the detailed design should satisfy their concerns to the extent that you can from any development. And obviously, if we say we can't just if we took any objection, then we'd never get any development.
That's CGI. Is that bungalow that says CGI?
Yeah.
The proposed bungalow.
Yeah.
They're tall bungalows to me, are they?
Well, I think the ground floor is a standard. I think it's just that they've got very tall windows. They've got floor to ceiling windows.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that you're looking at the front, which is looking away from Barfield Road there as well.
Pitch of these roofs.
Yeah. So I'll come to you in a minute, but I think the other point, another rather curious grounds for objection was the noise of the cars accessing the 3 bungalows at the back would impact the 2 houses. We're talking about 2 houses that are 12 metres and 14 metres away from the A4.
Yeah.
And that has from if Councillor Woodham recalls the speed limit meeting, 22,000 vehicle movements a day.
Yeah.
So I think that moving at 30 miles an hour, or possibly a bit more, the impact of a handful of movements at probably 5 miles an hour between there is probably not a significant impact on the noise.
Can I just clarify then these CGI bungalows?
Yeah.
And the plan
Yes.
appeared to show quite a long garden. And you know,
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas the bungalows have got shorter gardens, the other bungalows have got.
Yeah, oh, yeah, so
the
the,
distance.
oh, yeah, so this garden is extremely long. And even with those three bungalows have 10-metre back gardens, whereas the Barford Road has probably only got 5. So, anyway, so the point is that it's you know, if you I was thinking comparing this with our site visit to Chapel Street, where
Similar things.
similar thing, but the point, those were houses and they were the minimum distance. I was also today or yesterday in Whitaker Court off Landis Close, where those three-story houses, 3-story flats are only a couple of metres away from the boundary, which is only a couple of metres away from the road. So in comparison, this feels like a very, I might even say modest proposal. So at that point, if you've got any further comments, I'd like to invite a representative of the applicant, if you'd like to make any comments before we make a decision. You want to, you can come forward. You don't need to if you'd rather not. Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll come forward.
Okay.
The first thing is just a massive thank you, which is actually just taking the interest in this application. It's really appreciated. We made a pre-application to the market, and their policy was we won't communicate with the applicant or his agent, we won't send emails, they won't talk to us. We wouldn't have a meeting with us, though it's a pre-app. Then we made a plan application. There was no emails, communication, and responses, other than a decline letter. We made this second application, which we're now appealing. And again, the same process, no communication, but I actually submitted a 95-page document, which is in there somewhere. It's full of basically a planning history of the road from Headland to Northfield Road. And it's got on there plans. My daughter did an amazing amount of research on this and pulled together loads of historical site plans of all of that region. Amazingly, congratulations, Councillor, my 95-page document. There's more information, I think, substantive information in 4 pages than my 95. We're missing a few photographs, but this is a fantastic document, and I'm very, very grateful for your interest. We, on the design side, when you mentioned the particular Thatcham recommended design document of 2006, when it talks specifically about Bath Road, there's a photograph. It's about page 3 or 4. Go down this one. Here we go. Keep going. That's the next page, I think. Keep going. Keep going. Oh. There we go. Stop. That's the one. Now, those properties. Bear in mind the relevance that West Berkshire play on this document. Those properties don't exist.
Yeah.
That's where the Resense development is.
Yeah.
And Councillor Crumley, when you were looking at the picture of those flats, that wasn't actually Francis Close. Francis Close is behind the flats, and they're 3-story townhouses. So where we're trying to build bungalows and so on, and so the bungalows are, how dare I? If we get planning permission, we add value to the site. But actually, I'm sorry to be so desperate old fashioned, but I want to be party to something that is actually a nice place to live. And just finally, before I take all the time, I actually wanted to take you back 64 years. Because 64 years ago, I was born. And I was born 80 paces from 125 Bath Road. It's diagonal. So when you come down Head Lane, smack opposite, you've got 2 shops. You turn left, next to the shops, there's a little detached house, and then there's a 1920s stem, pair of stems. It's the first one, number 182 Bath Road, which is where I was building.
You were built.
No connection. Now, My grandmother, well, my grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Northover, typically at the time knew all the neighbours, etc. 123 Bath Road was built by the father of the Mrs. Platts. Mrs. Platts being the daughter. So the father built with his brother 125. When his brother moved on, the owner of 123, there's daughter who became Mrs. Platts, moved into 125. And I bought the property off her estate when she died at age 95. And because I've owned 123 for 20 years, I've had the pleasure of getting to know this lady. We talk about all the local history, which appears in that report. So how dare I? But please forgive me if my grandparents were Mr. and Mrs. Northover, 80 paces away, and if I was lucky enough to one day get planning permission, I'd dearly like to suggest that we could call the access way.
Well, that's something that, in fact, we are consulted over. We get we'll bear that in mind. If we can note that, if we do get that, well, I'll remember that if we do get that request, we will bear that in mind. So, thank you very much for that. Any questions that any of the other councillors have?
Well clarified. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So I'd just say in conclusion that obviously we quite frequently get applications where we make no objection, but the council objects for technical grounds. I felt that this was slightly different. This is that I couldn't understand the reasoning, and I put it almost in the same category as the issue over the incorrectly paid SIL payments, where it's not a different decision, it's a wrong decision, which is why I felt it was appropriate to take the time to write these representations for the council.
Well said,
So thank you very much. So can I therefore propose that we agree to send these representations to the inspector on behalf of the council?
Yeah.
Do you have a second?
These.
Yes, those, yes.
That's
That's
okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And good luck. It's, I can say it's not very, I don't think it's very common for a town council to take a position contrary to the district, but I think in this case it is appropriate.
Well, I'll ask a question. What part are you taking in the appeal? The appeal is by written representation. Have you got somebody, a consultant or expert to put forward grounds on your behalf, or are you doing it yourself?
I'm doing it together with an agent. I'm not engaging with a planning consultant.
So you've made representation support.
Yes,
the
I-
appeal.
So let me know.
I spent 3 years trying to find some common sense process. And this has been the first opportunity to risk.
So in fact, you're quite lucky because I spent 6 days in the last few months in a planning inquiry with an inspector. So that's given me insight into the sort of information that is necessary, which is why there's references to all of the policies. And there's no point in just saying we dislike it. You have to say these are the grounds. And luckily, because I've been doing that work for a different appeal, I was also quite familiar with the documentation to find it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not sure enough saying that we don't like. Not quite.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we now return item 6. That's agenda item 6. So we now return back to agenda item 5. Would you like to introduce us or?
Would you like to, Chairman?
Okay, so Cold Ash is developing a neighbourhood development plan, which has reached the stage of regulation 14, which broadly speaking is equivalent to regulation 18 for a district council local plan. In other words, it's a consultation for comments, and then there's a second one coming that will come up when they actually do the formal stage, just like regulation 19. So I felt, again, it's appropriate for us to respond as a neighbouring parish, but I felt also that it was appropriate for us to limit our comments to things that are relevant to Thatcham. There are several other things I might want to say personally, but Councillor Withams.
I'm going to throw my hat into the ring.
Yeah.
I'm never quite sure sometimes if what I'm about to say is relevant to the point we're talking about. we are expecting increasing numbers of homes as
Yes.
built developed in the area. And particularly coal ash and certainly around the north
Yeah.
factory. We have a lot of roads which are quite narrow, just passable in some respects, but to bring to your attention that there are a lot of pavements that are extremely narrow. East Lane, for instance, and Montpart is so narrow that you couldn't get a pushchair and a baby beside.
Yeah.
Person coming towards you would have to step into the road. And I just wondered, would it be appropriate to add somewhere that because of increased development, which obviously results in increased traffic, that narrow pavements should be considered
So
and
Yeah.
widened where possible.
So I didn't include that sort of thing. I can't remember that the actual regulation 14 document is over 100 pages long. But I think that generally speaking, that would be for the benefit of residents of Cold Ash, not for Thatcham residents. So we need to be a bit cautious. I would be happy to add that as a single point. I don't think we should be reviewing the plan as a whole, but we can comment based on our experience. I need to do that offline if that's okay. First of all, we'll take what's in the document as it stands, and then we'll decide if.
What are we looking at? And
But this
I've
is-
just got item 5.1.
So, okay, so we have, again, we have a number of documents here. You have a notification, I think. Item 5.1.
It was printed separately.
All right. So item 5, right, okay,
I didn't have it when I.
Yeah. sorry.
This is the only one I don't have.
Yes.
Wow.
So the 5.1 is the it's a notification that we received that there is a regulation 14 consultation, and my response, which was circulated late because I was doing the previous response.
Yes.
So if you look at that, there's only four points really: flooding, public rights of way and iconic views, sunken lanes, which is Lawrence's Lane, and the buffer zone. So flooding is basically the comment there is supporting their view and offering to work with them if they should they wish to do so. Public rights of way, the reason this is added is that they have been focusing mainly on the public rights of way up the hill, and there are some on the southern end of Cold Ash which are useful for residents of Thatcham and also Florence Way, Florence Gardens. So those are a number of points, and there's something iconic views is where they identify places from which there is a view that they wish to have preserved, and I suggested another one from just north of Panic Manor. Again, I think that's more known to people right at the southern end, people from Florence Gardens and Thatcham, but so I suggested that they add that.
Such places I seem to remember there from the churchyard of the church, rather, obviously looking I think west, there was a good view. Did they mention that?
I can't remember, but the point is that's a view that they have about 10 in there, so it's quite likely that they do mention it. That's the point. Is I've added that one because it's a view which is seen from the southern end, and it does extend across Thatcham. Councillor Woodhams.
I'm sure I heard at the previous meeting that I believe we were told that you can't have a green or a gap,
Okay.
strategic gap.
Right.
Is it the same thing.
So the buffer zone. So if I explain a bit there, that they propose they show a buffer zone which was based on residents, which was seen to be more of a it seemed to correlate very well with developers. But West Berkshire Council has, as part of the local plan, they did the study of gaps, and that came up with a proposal for two separate gaps between Thatcham and Ashmore Green, and between Thatcham and Cold Ash, broadly speaking, along those two roads. And it seems actually that those two, which are or have the status of having been approved, an approved document, West Berkshire Council actually achieved the objectives that they're stating of trying to maintain the separation between the two settlements better than what was proposed in their document. which is why I suggested in the final section that they consider using those. And of course, it would probably help them if they aligned their proposal with what's already in the will become evidence to the local plan.
So overall, you're saying you want to maintain those.
Maintain the gaps, but their gap is it seemed to be rather more. It seemed to have the flavour of preventing development rather than maintaining the separation, because of course the development adjacent to Thatcham is more connected to Thatcham than to Coldash.
That sounds good to me.
So if and Sunken Lanes, they have a section on that. They've identified 3 or 4 and suggest that Lawrence's Lane, which of course is on the boundary, they're responsible for the west side, we're responsible for the east side. Some of the length of that is also effectively has a character of a sunken lane. So suggested that they add that to their list.
Can I ask you then, we did have a letter from a developer asking for views from residents in respect of the potential development east of Regency Park Hotel.
Yeah.
About 330 homes or something. Does that break a gap of some description, or can that fall within a gap of Coldish?
A complicated question. It's their view is that it doesn't. I think the Coldash current neighbourhood development plan that would be in contradiction to the neighbourhood development plan, and I get the flavour that the neighbourhood development plan was written with that specific objective in mind.
Yes, I can.
But I particularly didn't want to prejudge that point, given that the open nature of the local plan and the various options. As I indicated before, I think that we did accept in our response to the local plan consultation that there needed to be more houses for Thatcham. But we didn't like the current proposal, and we don't really want to prejudge our position on any alternative proposal that comes forward.
Sure.
So that's what I tried to avoid there.
Of course.
So could I suggest then that we agree the text as it stands that we have before us with the intention of developing an additional section relating to width of pavements, specifically on we will focus on the roads that connect Thatcham and I guess it's Coldash, because the width of the pavement connecting Thatcham to Ashmore Green is 0.
Yeah,
But then have one.
No. So
yeah.
Did you want to propose?
So what I was proposing is that to approve this as it stands with the intention of developing a further section to be agreed by email, initially between myself and Councillor Woodhams, and then circulated to the other councillors. And I think if I recall, it's the 19th of April, so we have plenty of time to do that by correspondence. But
Happy to second.
then it's before the next meeting, so it doesn't need to be by one. So second, and you got that recorded. Those in favour? Thank you very much. So we will send that response.
Thank you again for the work you put into that one as well.
Okay.
Yes,
It took longer to read. It took longer to read the document than to write the response, I have to say, in this case. So we then move on to agenda item 7 and the Frothy Frog.
That's a raise a preliminary point. Is there more than one street trader operating or trying to operate in the car park?
No.
Because when this was first debated and this application was pending, when I drove away from here, there was a van operating that very evening.
There was.
And I said, oh, well, it's him already. I think I spoke to somebody else and said, no, it's an ice cream van.
And it was beyond the hours that we had considered as well.
Right, you probably saw it as well. Isn't it?
So
But then
then,
we don't know about that.
no.
So it could be a road.
Okay, would you like to
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So members may recall this street trading consent application coming before committee. On the 14th of March, committee raised 2 queries, and they were to do with the disposal of waste and the power source. So the applicant has responded, and we have been advised that West Berkshire Council will seek to approve the application in line with these responses. So if we do want to make comments, then we do need to go back with those comments. So with regard to the disposal of waste, the applicant has said that they are looking at fortnightly collections. And in the interim, if more was needed, then they would take it away at the end of service. So they are going to enter into contract with a waste disposal company to collect the rubbish fortnightly. And with regard to power, there is an electrical supply being provided by the Memorial Hall Foundation, so there won't be any need for use of a generator.
Yeah.
So that's the responses to the queries raised. The applicant has also amended the times, the trading times. On the original application, it was Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They've now requested that be revised to Monday to Sunday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. to provide flexibility. But at the moment, for the launch to begin with, they will only be trading Wednesday to Sunday. But by applying for the flexibility now, that can change over time. And then one other thing, just to this needs to sort of quite strongly, in my opinion, be reinforced. The applicant has said in their application that they wish to trade before and immediately after the Remembrance Parade. I would like to recommend that we request that trading is forbidden between 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Remembrance Day, so as not to hinder with the setup of the site for Remembrance.
2 p.m. You said 4 p.m.
Sorry,
1400.
2 p.m.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think it's refer to Remembrance Day, we better, that's our Remembrance Day, in other words, the Sunday
The
when
Sunday.
they have the service and the congregation gathering, is that? Is that properly called Remembrance Sunday, is it? It's always a Sunday,
Yes, yes,
just to avoid any confusion with them saying.
yes, because the other is
No,
Armistice
Yeah,
Day, isn't it?
November the 11th,
Yeah.
whenever it falls. But it would be,
Mm.
perhaps Remembrance Sunday would be better than Remembrance
Mm.
Day, or am I?
I also wonder, because Armistice Day is at the same location, isn't it?
Yes, but I don't think that would really hinder.
I'm just thinking about whether it's in keeping, but perhaps that's something for the memorial, more for the Memorial Trust to deal with. But
Yes.
so yes, any thoughts on that?
Chairman, could I just ask, was there any consultation with the adjacent properties? It's quite close to the apartments nearby. I didn't know where the smell was.
Don't know.
The exhaust.
That's the way it's. It's
Sandwiches and jacket potatoes and
Noise.
Mm.
They're not selling alcohol, are they?
no.
Not burgers,
No.
jacket potatoes.
Tea, coffee, sandwiches, jacket potatoes, paninis, pastries, and savoury snacks.
Mm.
Oh, sorry.
Thankfully, not kebabs.
Well, there shouldn't be too much
Yeah.
trouble with that, should there?
So
Did you propose some?
Can I propose that we make no objection subject to that condition for Remembrance Sunday? The hours that you have proposed. Seconded, those in favour of that proposal, so no objection subject to that condition being applied.
Thank you.
So actually, just as a matter of clarity, it should say start at 8:30 because they're not licensed to trade before then. Actually, it's an interesting question. They're not licensed to trade, but they should be. Yeah, they need to be off-site. Don't they? Yes, so
Yeah.
it does need to say 7:30. Yes.
Do they actually drive away then?
Well, they have to be. Well, this is a trailer, but the point is, it has to be removed for Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
So it's not really.
Sure. I
Because,
just wondered, is it going to remain there during the
I believe so.
So,
Yeah.
overnight and so on?
Mm.
Well, every day.
Mm. Yes.
Assume they're paying rent.
Parking fees.
Oh.
Parking fees. Yeah.
Yeah.
They might find that's a problem unless they're very fast food, because if you stay there more than 10 minutes, you
Yeah, we got,
Yes.
very good.
Yeah. Okay, so planning applications, that's, that we concluded that one. So planning applications, we have three before us.
Thank
So,
you, Chairman. So the first one, 23 Goose Green Way, it's this property in the corner here. Permission has already been granted for a single-storey extension on this side of the property, and this application is to add a first floor extension on the top. And the single-storey extension is said to be under construction. So the addition, the first floor extension will provide an additional bedroom, and there will be reconfiguration of the existing bedroom. So it will increase from 3 bed to a 4-bed property. The only other similar sort of extension in the area, you can see that a lot of the properties haven't had these extensions except for this one here, which is similar in some form to what's proposed, and that's just located around the corner from this property. And the where's my things gone? Bear with me, apologies. Right. So this is the roof plan, as you can see. So it's this side of the property here. This is the extension, single-storey extension that has already been approved. And then this is the proposed. So the side view there. Street view. And the rear of the property.
Can I see the plan view, please?
The what's the reading?
Plan view from the top.
No, I'm concerned about side access when they're in office.
Yes. So Goose is quite a way behind the mystic boundary.
It looks like you actually have rear access. Well, we've got access from the other side to going up beside the garage.
So I'll see.
Well, where the
On
arrow
the
is.
left hand, where the arrow is.
So you go up and round the property rather than below it.
I see.
And it looks like there's also, in fact, an access from behind. That looks like it's a turning bay to the right as well. But
That was just
that sort of thing, it looks like a
hammerhead, yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that's confusing, I think.
Yeah.
So to the left hand side is the front of the property looking at it from the road.
Can you actually identify the proposed extension? It's 3 different shades.
So it's this bit here.
Yes, it's what I said.
Quite substantial. What's the top bit, which is speckled with black? What is that? Yeah. That existing.
Looks like there's a single-storey extension to the other side there.
Well, that would appear on one of the elevations, wouldn't it? If it's
Really packing it in.
yeah.
Yes.
I was rather dubious about the car parking.
Yes, it all. Pretty high density, doesn't it? So there's,
It's going from 3 to 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you remind us of the standards required?
It'll go up, but the point I was making, not so much the quantity, but the fact that to get 3 cars in there, the third car will block the other 2, and you've got limited space to actually manoeuvre. So
well, the garage we can see in the middle, the double garage.
yeah, So no, it's actually half, I think you'll find it's only one of them. It's a single garage.
That's what I was
But-
thinking.
But West Berkshire Council do not count garages as parking space because so few of them actually
Sure.
have enough space to put a car in it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the point is you've got three cars, the plan showed three cars, so you've got to park another one in front of the silver and blocking the red.
Yeah.
So if either of those cars wanted to leave, you would have to sort of move that car out.
I think that's very, very common nowadays. I know it's not the question. It just looks all rather cramped and crowded as it is, and they're going to extend. So.
Yeah.
Would it actually block the red car?
Well, yeah, because I think if you looked at the drawing, it would if it's a bigger car. It's certainly the plan showed it blocking. If we go back to that. Yeah. So.
I feel I don't feel comfortable with it. I feel it's too big and too much of an overextension of the
Were there
property. That's my.
any objection from the neighbour?
None, Chairman, no.
Do you know how, what was the date that this was, how recent is it? Do you have a date for the,
But we received the application,
yes,
uh, 10th of March, it
Okay.
was dispatched.
so it's not a very recent one, so the neighbours would have had time to respond if they'd seen the orange notice.
Well,
I take the view that it's acceptable subject to highways, WBC highways commenting on the provision of sufficient parking.
Okay, so that's a proposal.
Off-street.
Off-street, yeah, yeah.
But we've heard tonight about on-street parking.
Yeah, that doesn't, there was the highway, they don't count that in the,
They don't count off-street park.
it's only off, they only count off-street, yeah, we had
I know they don't.
a few marginal cases where it's been unclear, but this case it's. So that was a proposal from councillor Woodhams, are you going to
Subject to probably
the highways? Yeah,
suitable inquiry about off-street.
yeah.
Okay, if that's where you want to
So
go.
seconding that, so those in favour, thank you, that's unanimous.
This is an exciting one next.
Whitelands Park, so an aerial view here. So you can see Sagecroft Road along here. So the location for this storage shed is in this area here that you can just see. There's already a timber shed existing, and this will be a concrete block shed. And just quickly call up the map. So you can see it's this blue area here. And we zoom in. There we go.
Wow.
And that's the design. And it's for storage.
Okay,
Do they have any photographs of what is there at the moment?
No, there isn't any other than just these two, which are the timber sheds
Just that the
presumably.
concrete shed is going to be incredibly squat and ugly, whereas a wooden shed might be just a little more palatable. And it seems to me, although it maybe have greater longevity, the wooden shed is
and
a
security.
fairly ugly item. Security, yeah.
Does it say what they're for?
Just storage,
Yeah.
that's all it says.
Okay, but it's a single story building. And it was at the end of the adjacent properties had quite long gardens. So could I suggest that we make no objection to this one?
Proposed raise no objections.
Okay.
So I'm saying no objections.
And Town Lane. Chairman, I believe would you like to speak on your photograph?
Yes, so I was walked down Town Lane this morning, so I took 2 photographs. So could you go to, this is the property, and we've previously seen that application, so it's a fairly substantial increase in the property, but it seems that they forgot to apply for the wall. So you can see there that the wall at the side is, as you can see, goes up to 2 meters. It drops down by the road. You can't see there is also a wall at the front, hidden by that massive delivery of block paving. But you can just see effectively. Well, we'll go to you've got a plan, have you, an elevation drawing. But anyway, so in fact it's not solid all the way up. But if you could go to the other photograph, because we also you will recall saw that one which we objected to. This is almost opposite on the other side, and that was approved by West Berkshire Council.
Yes.
So if you go to the elevation drawing, okay, so so you can see there that the elevation B, you have the brick piers and then a brick wall between them, but the top is open ironwork. So the top of the brickwork was about the same height as the top of that pile of block paving, and therefore that the ironwork, the solid wall is somewhere below that. It's certainly not as solid as the one on the opposite side.
That's yet to be built.
No, it is. This is part retrospective, so it had been built. It's just hidden by the blocks of the paving blocks.
It's been built, and the aperture has been filled with the wire.
So it's ironwork, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
There's quite a lot of that. It isn't just those 2.
no, it goes along, but the point is that everything else is hidden by the block paving.
But is that for the site in question?
Sorry? Yeah, that's for the
delivery of the.
yes. So we had a planning application for the extension of the house, which you can see more than doubled its size. And in fact, there's a large garage at the back, which I don't recall seeing the plan for. But anyway, it's an interesting place to put a site notice there.
Yes.
On the loo. On the loo, yes. Anyway, so the point is, we are. Can you go back to the plan? Is that the only document we have?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what I would suggest is that we make no objection on condition that the fill between the brick piers is the open ironwork and not solid.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I agree.
Because it's not, if that's the only drawing we've got, that is not clear.
But the wall is much longer than appears in the photograph, but I mean, the wall is much better, usually the divider than
Yeah.
a fence and length and air quality.
Yeah.
So not many people have that.
So if you've got that note, no objection on the basis
How
of that.
tall is the wall again?
Well, 1.5 meters, which to you is about 5 feet, 4 foot.
Sorry, the one on the right that I'm looking at is more than that. I don't.
So the wall goes up to nearly 2 meters. As the wall that goes between the properties goes to almost 2 meters.
2 meters, yeah.
1980, so that's 20 meters, 20 millimeters. That much short of work when they need full planning permission. But the one along the front is 1.5 meters.
Yeah.
It's about that high. But the
Well, it's quite nice how it tapers off at the end and descends to a more appropriate level.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody likes their retrospectives and okay, what are you proposing?
I'm proposing that we make no objection on the condition that the fill between the brick piers is the ironwork that is currently in place and not
Nothing else.
not a solid timber.
I agree with that. Support.
Thank you. Those in favour, thank you. So we then have four applications which we wouldn't normally consider. Have we had any objections to any of them?
Nothing, Chairman.
I think a legal mind might want to scrutinise the first one, but we'll leave that to a legal mind. But well, it's that one about moving the planning app. The first one here for the MOD storage depot, which is it is a plan. It's some condition to do with mortgage exclusion clauses.
Well, mortgage,
I think
heard of that.
anyway.
Standard form of mortgagee, so that's the lender, like the building society exclusion clauses. And
It was some condition on mortgages that were
Yeah.
applied as part of the
I suppose the lender might say, well, I
covenant.
lend you money to build a private house, but not to indulge in.
I think it's effectively a covenant on the
Yeah.
might be on renting anyway. But anyway, for our purposes, can I suggest we move on?
Yeah.
Planning matters. Anything arisen?
Nothing from me, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 10 has we've already addressed. Agenda item 11, decision notices.
Just one to highlight, Chairman, and that is 15 Golding Close. Committee raised no objection provided that concerns raised by highways with parking were addressed. The application has been approved and the applicant did submit amended drawings with revised off-street parking. Highways subsequently then removed their objection and the application was approved in line with the revised drawing.
Excellent. Can I just comment on 16 Chapel?
You achieve something.
16 Chapel Street. I did look at this one. The prior approval is, it says that the council, we made an objection. West Berkshire Council determined that prior approval is required, but the matters for which the prior approval is required are details. So the principle of the demolition is effectively established, unfortunately.
Where's 16 Chapel Street?
That's the terrace of 3 cottages where they want to build is it 9 houses in the back garden, and they want to demolish the end cottage in order to make a 2-way access. So the conditions, the planning approval is things like maintaining the type of bricks and not disturbing tree roots and things. It's not a principle, there's nothing of principle that's being requested. Okay, thank you. So we move on to the final item on the agenda, reports from council outside bodies. The only person named here who's present is Councillor Richard Cromley. Do you have anything to comment on?
I have nothing. Well, as I'm a substitute, I haven't attended any meetings and before the finals of subpack.
That's fine. So with that, I think then the meeting is therefore closed. Thank you very much.
Well done, Chairman. Well done, Chairman.